Well, good evening and welcome to Southbound, an NFL podcast where two depressed Saints fans talk about the NFL at large, the NFC South, and specifically the New Orleans Saints. My name is Matt.
I'm the Quacker.
All right, Quacker. So we missed last week, but lots of interesting things going on in the league. So let's start off with our news and notes.
All right. Cardinals replacing quarterback Kyler Murray. Well, that's a mouthful right there. On IR as he continues to rehab a foot injury he sustained in Week 5. The injury isn't season ending. So once he's healthy, he'll be able to come back. Jaden Daniels was injured with a gruesome elbow injury in their loss on Sunday night. He was diagnosed with a dislocated elbow, and if you saw the shot with his arm bent the wrong way, you probably almost threw up like I did. Said to be out for an extended period of time. They didn't say season ending. Looking at that photo, it was pretty gruesome. So I would say there's a good chance he's not back for the rest of the season, which, you know, that's Mariota's a good backup, but I don't know that he's going to be able to help lead Washington to a playoff run, especially with all the other injuries they've had around them this year. There's been a ton of injuries in Washington this year. So yesterday was the NFL trade deadline, and there were quite a few moves made. I want to talk about just a few of them here. There was a ton of moves made yesterday. We're just going to kind of cover the highlights here. The Saints traded offensive tackle Trevor Penning to the Chargers for a 2027 sixth-round pick. They traded one of my favorite players, Rashid Shaheed, to the Seahawks for a 2026 fourth-round pick and a 2026 fifth-round pick. So sorry to see him go, but he's going to a team where he'll actually make the playoffs this year, so good for him. The Jets were pretty active yesterday. They traded cornerback Sauce Gardner to the Colts for wide receiver Adonai Mitchell and first-round picks from 2026 and 2027. Now, Matt, didn't Adonai Mitchell, didn't he go to Georgia and then Texas? Wasn't he that?
You know, I'm not sure. That may be right. But off the top of my head, I'm not positive.
I'm thinking he's the guy that caught that big touchdown in the national championship game for the Bulldogs against Alabama. But it's been long enough that I don't remember off the top of my head at this point. The Jets also traded.
Yes, that's right. 21 and 22 at Georgia, which would have been he was there for one of those titles, and then. Or was it both of them? I can't remember if they were 20 and 21 or 21 and 22, but then he was
21
with Texas.
22. So,
okay, so he's there for both. And then he was at Texas in 23.
Okay. All right, I knew that name was familiar, and I was thinking that's who it was. They also traded defensive tackle Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for defensive tackle Maxie Smith, a 2026 second-round pick, and a 2027 first-round pick. And I was looking, ESPN gave this an F grade for the Cowboys. That they're saying that not that Williams wasn't a good player, but the Cowboys have like a 7% chance of making the playoffs this year, and they just spent a lot of capital on a player who's taking up a lot of cap space. And speaking of the Cowboys, they traded for Bengals linebacker Logan Wilson for a 2026 seventh-round pick. The Raiders traded wide receiver Jacoby Myers to the Jags for a 2026 fourth-round pick and a 2026 sixth-round pick. And in the case of the rich getting richer, the Eagles made several moves yesterday. The Eagles acquired Dolphins edge Jalen Phillips for a 2026 third-round pick. They acquired Ravens cornerback Jair Alexander and a 2027 seventh-round pick for a 2026 sixth-round pick. They also traded the Jets to getting cornerback Michael Carter II and a 2027 seventh round pick, sending the Jets wide receiver John Mechie III and a 2027 sixth round pick. There were some teams, Matt, that I saw that I was really surprised were kind of sellers. Like the Patriots made a couple moves. I was reading. It said it was both. It was two defensive players, and it was kind of some players that were on the outs with Vrabel. So like they were kind of getting less playing time and stuff. So it wasn't like there were a huge impact on the team as far as them selling off like key assets and stuff. But it was some moves that they made. The Ravens were very active yesterday as sellers, which with their record right now, it's kind of smart. But I don't think it's all just because they have bad players on. I think there's been a lot of weird circumstances with the Ravens this year that have led them to have the record they have. But seeing those two teams as sellers was kind of surprising.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we're seeing is a lot of the moves being made by these teams are to get future value. Did you say that Penning was a 27 sixth or seventh round pick in return?
Sixth round pick.
Okay. Well, so I wanted to talk a little bit about. First of all, I hate that for Jaden Daniels, and I hope that he doesn't become the next LSU quarterback who's super promising, who's injured a lot. Now, that's a little bit overblown because I can't remember. I think he got injured last year for a short time for like a game, but I can't remember. But obviously he missed a little bit of time earlier, and now looks like he will miss an undetermined amount of time. But I'm hoping that that it's not it won't be like a Joe Burrow situation where this winds up happening every year, because both of these guys are really talented guys, and the only thing that's really gotten in their way has been injuries.
In the case of Burrow, it's been a bad offensive line leading to injuries, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think that's going to be in the NFL with as big and fast, as strong as all these guys are. I think that that line play is going to directly impact these guys. Now, you could be Tua and just be made of porcelain and taking jujitsu to learn how to fall or whatever the heck. But yeah, I mean, generally, I think you're right that it is, it's a result, in part at least, for bad offensive line play. But so I was just looking through Penning stats. Obviously, we're Saints fans, so we're gonna talk about the Saints. So I knew that Olave and Shaheed were names that had been mentioned, and I really didn't want to get rid of either one. I know most fans probably who are Saints fans, if they were to get rid of one, they would have preferred to get rid of Olave over Shaheed. I'm kind of split down the middle. But first, about Penning, he was the 19th overall pick in 22, and his stats are pretty good. 11 holding penalties on 1,981 snaps, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. 6 false starts in his career, and if you just look at last year, he was on the field for 1,082 snaps, had 1 false start. He was on the field for 358 this year and had 2 false starts. New offense, new coach. That's not terrible. And in his 3.25 seasons or whatever, 3.5 seasons with the Saints, and in the NFL, 22 total accepted penalties. So obviously there are other metrics you want to look at when it comes to offensive linemen, like how many blocks are they missing? How many, how much are they opening up for the run game? How many sacks are they directly or in part allowing? But for a 7th round pick on a guy who's in his 4th year, sixth round pick. I'm not wild about that. Like I would have liked to see maybe a 5th round pick, but I'm not. It's not the end of the world. Now, in the case of Shaheed is I think he's 27. Like he's older than I thought he was.
Well, I'm not sure. I thought he was fairly young.
Well, he is, but he was an undrafted free agent that signed with New Orleans. Yeah, he's 27.
Okay.
So that's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not young. I mean, when you consider sometimes receivers can come in as young as 20, but normally 21 or 22 is when they're coming into the league. The thing with Shaheed, I don't know that he's like a top 5 receiver. Well, I know that he's not, but what he is he's one of the fastest guys out there, and he's an incredible returner. So
yes,
to get 2 picks next draft is good. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to add value, and they're trying to clear some cap space. I understand all of that. A 4th and a 5th round for Shaheed, I feel like is probably pretty close to market value, but I hate to see it because so I don't think that Loomis made a bad decision or got a bad deal on that. But you hit on 4th and 5th round picks sometimes, but a lot of times you don't. And in recent years we've seen teams reach and get guys in the late 1st or early 2nd that don't pan out past their first contract. And you used to never see that. You used to see 1st and 2nd round were pretty much always hits. Whether they were, all pros or anything is a different story, but they were good players. And then beyond that, just depends on the chemistry. But overall, I didn't look at any of the draft grades. I was just kind of trying to look for me as a Saints fan, how I feel about it. And I've said for a long time that, it's obviously, I think it's time for Jordan and Davis to go. Now, I feel like they have earned the right to go on their own terms, so I would hate to see them be forced out or anything like that. So, they need to go, but that's an end of the season thing. I mean, you're not going to trade a 35 plus,
Davis is still probably the best player on defense right now. I mean, I was reading some stuff today, and it was saying that he's by the metrics, he's still the best player on the defense. Even at his advanced age.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that he's fallen off, and even Cam Jordan has had moments that are good, but he's not going to get better. I think where Davis helps more than anything, if we had guys around him, on the front 7, whether it's edge or other linebackers who were a little bit younger and more spry. I feel like what Davis has between the ears and an experience is worth him being on the field, even if he's not, leading the metrics. So when I say, part of me saying that with Cam Jordan and Davis is I don't feel like they're liabilities. Like Cam Jordan isn't as dynamic as he used to be, but I don't feel like either one of them are liabilities. But they're expensive contracts and they're older players. So there's not a lot of value to trade them. And I feel like both of those guys would like to retire as Saints. I don't know that. Same thing goes with Kamara and Taysom Hill. I don't know that those are guys we really want to move because I don't know that there's a ton of value at their age. But they still have some value, just being on the roster. So I don't hate what they did. I'm glad that we kept Olave. I like if we're gonna get rid of one of them, I'm glad we didn't get rid of both. Is all I'm saying. I think I'm 50-50. Would have been fine with Olave or Shaheed. I think the upside for Olave is he's a little bit more versatile, and he's a better receiver. He's not a better returner, and he's not faster, but he's a better receiver
when he's healthy.
Yeah, but he's also younger. But he's also younger, and you're right. He has been hurt a few times, and that does have to be considered. But that's kind of why I say I'm sort of split on him. Like I would have been fine with either one. So I guess like what I'm saying is my opinion on what the Saints did yesterday feel like it's about as good as they could have done. I just don't know that there was a scenario where they could have like come out gangbusters, because at 1-8, you're not adding 2 or 3 high value players to try and make the playoffs. You're trying to figure out how this offseason is leveraged into a playoff contender for next year, and obviously one of the problems the Saints have is they cannot, like I think everyone thought this coming up quarterback draft class was going to be far superior to last year's draft class. Well, right now it seems like while there are some names that have popped up that I think are going to be good draft prospects at the quarterback position, some of the guys that we thought were going to be up there, like for instance Sellers, Arch. Now Arch is a little different because while Arch has not risen his stock, certainly, it also obviously came out before the season that there's really no guarantee and maybe some indication that he wouldn't come out anyway. So, but I think that's the big problem is in the offseason, you've got to once again finagle some contracts. And, Shucks only had 1 game and Spencer Rattler overall didn't look terrible. But we got to get a quarterback unless Shuck just shows something. And this is sort of what I was afraid of. I was afraid a lot of this blame was going to go on Kellen Moore, but the fact is, I'm not looking at the schedule right now, but all of our games, but like 2 or 3 have been 1-possession games that come down to the end. So it's not like we're putting a pathetic product out there. We're just not winning games,
This past week it was kind of a blowout. 34-10, but outside of that,
that one, the Bucs game the week before that, and then the Seahawks game. That's what I'm saying. But out of 9 games, those 3 were not really competitive. All of the other games though have been very competitive, and that's I think to me that's when I look at Kellen Moore and I say first time head coach coming into a bad salary cap and roster situation. I see upside in that, Now the question is going to be whether Benson and Loomis are going to see the upside, but I hope they do. And obviously Mr. Benson, did the hiring up to Dennis Allen because he passed away while Sean Payton was there, but I don't know that Gail Benson will be much different. And my point is, Mr. Benson had a track record of he wasn't the Steelers where they have had like 7 head coaches in the entire history of their franchise, but they're slower to fire than some of these other franchises. And I think that's good. Because what they give Dennis, did they give Dennis Allen 1.5 or 2.5 seasons?
2.5.
Okay. And to me, a guy who's already coached a little bit, I feel like 2.5, that's fine. That's good. Like you're not pulling the trigger after season 1, but you're not hitting the panic button, but you're also not waiting 5 years, with top 5 picks every year. So
yeah,
I say all that to say you and I are not executives. We're not owners, so we don't know what they're thinking, but I really hope that this doesn't cost Kellen Moore because I don't think we've seen anything to indicate from the outside the building that would suggest that Kellen Moore is a bad head coach. We just don't know what we don't know yet.
I saw something today that had me just shaking my head, and it was saying that Kellen Moore is already on the hot seat, and I was like, this is like a fan type thing right here because there's no way the Saints inside the building are looking at the roster they have, which is rated as one of the worst in the league, and going, oh well, it's all Kellen Moore's fault. He's not preparing them well. He's not doing this. That's total bull crap. It's frustrated Saints fans that are writing this stuff, and to me, I don't want to see come April Mickey Loomis making these draft picks. He's past it. There was a time where you look at the 2017, 2016, whenever he drafted Kamara, like that class is one of the best in league history is what you hear. Like every one of those draft picks hit. They all been very productive players, and since then he's signed bad contracts. And a lot of that was him because Drew was still there, and they were still chasing that playoff win, that Super Bowl window. But instead of instead of getting out of the hole that they put themselves in, he's just continued to restructure and just kick the can down the road. And now we're seeing the consequences of all that because we have a terrible roster. It's, you know, we don't know if we have a quarterback. We don't know, like what next season will like as far as the defense with all these players. Is this Cam Jordan's last season? I was just looking it up, and I can't make heads or tails of it. I've heard that this was going to be his last season. Same thing with Davis, but I don't know anymore because you look online and you're just like, well, he hasn't said that, but I could swear I've read that before or heard that in an interview.
And again, I don't think that most Saints fans, maybe some like irrational fans might say this, but I don't think most Saints fans think that either one of those guys are liabilities. I think they're just expensive and they don't have a lot of value outside of New Orleans, and that's just the nature of the NFL business. But so I think, like, because just a few years ago they picked up Brian Brzee or Brzee. I never know how to say his name. The guy from Clemson. I feel like Loomis's draft picks have been pretty good. I think where Loomis has kind of made me scratch my head, and a lot. I think that's the one thing with NFL GMs that most of them, they're shooting in the dark at the quarterback position. There's so much unknown because it's not just an athletic position or between the ears position. It's also a leadership position. It's a chemistry position. And with the combine and the pro days and all that, they and the interviews, they have a lot of research that goes into it. But I think that position above all others is just hard to tell. Which is why you see a guy like Purdy or Brady go so low in the draft. Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, and then they wind up being good. And then you see guys like Matt Leinart, who are lottery picks who don't pan out. Now, Matt Leinart was drafted into a bad situation, and a lot of these quarterbacks were. Jamarcus Russell, now I think Jamarcus Russell also had a tendency to be kind of lazy and not have a great attitude, but he wasn't drafted into a good situation. That was more between
his ears.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is it's like they've got all of this pre-work that they do. If you've ever listened to, there's a really good 6-part podcast called Gladiator, and it's about Aaron Hernandez, and it chronicles his time in high school, in college, and then in the pros. And there's a really interesting segment in that, and the journalist who wrote it really focuses on CTE. So I mean, I'm not gonna get into that one way or the other, but there's a really interesting segment in that podcast where it's the second or third episode when they're talking about his pre-draft process, and his agent had him like write letters to teams because they were nervous about his psych eval. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is if you remember watching him at Florida and watching him in New England before he got in trouble, he just appeared from the outside, appeared to be a quiet guy who went on the field and did what he did. And then obviously it comes out, once he got in trouble, all of these crazy things in these interviews with NFL players saying, yeah, he really, freaked me out or whatever. But my point is, I'm not trying to make this about Aaron Hernandez. What I'm saying is that a guy like that, they took a risk on, and it seemed from the outside like there were no issues, but then obviously there were tons of issues. And I think a lot of times that it's just sort of a crapshoot when it comes to quarterback, because it's not just can you show up, be professional, and learn the plays and study your film. It is, can you do all of those things? Can you gel and be a good leader for your teammates? Can you gel and be on the same page with your offensive play caller and your head coach? And when you get all of those things that are yeses, and you have like a really good someone who's very studious in preparation, that's when you get Drew Brees or Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers. And even Aaron Rodgers, I would say, didn't gel all the time with his coaches, but these other guys did, and Peyton Manning was so smart that he just, he was to the point. Now, I mean, all of these guys, Drew Brees and Brady were the same way, but Peyton Manning got to the point probably halfway through his career where I'm pretty sure he was essentially just calling the plays, not just his audibles. I think he was calling the plays. Now, that may not be 100% accurate, but my point is, quarterback position is like all of these things that because, talent will get you to a D1 school. But you and I both know when you get to the NFL, everybody's talented. It's how hard can you work from Monday to Saturday. How well can you take care of your body? How well can you take care of your mind? How much film are you watching? And that's one of the things I always admired about Drew Brees is and you know this because we saw it for 15 years. Every time he came off the field, he went to the bench, picked up the Microsoft Surface, and was looking at the images of the plays. He was always studying. And I don't think guys like Brady or Rodgers or Manning are different. I mean, I think that's what makes those types of quarterbacks so good. But anyway, I didn't mean to like go off on a diatribe. I just I don't wholesale hate what Mickey Loomis is doing. I think he's missed on some quarterbacks. Don't know why he took Ian Book. Now, I didn't take him high, but I don't know why he took him. I don't know why he took Spencer Rattler. I don't know why he took Tyler Shough in the second round. But I will say this. For Rattler being, a fifth-round pick, his value has been better than a fifth-round pick because, like I said, he didn't look great the whole season, but he didn't look awful.
Yeah.
But I do agree.
I think you've seen his ceiling, though.
You probably have. And I also, I am – even though I've been saying I want to see what Shough got because we pulled him in the second round and everything, I am glad they gave Spencer Rattler essentially half the season because now I think what they're doing is they're teeing themselves up to say, okay, we're going to keep one of these guys. They almost certainly are going to have to keep Shough because he was a second-round pick. But they don't have to. But it's a lot harder to move a rookie contract if they're a first or second round pick. Really hard if they're first round. But now I think they're teeing themselves up to get to the offseason and say, do we dump both these guys? Do we deal them? Do we keep one? I certainly don't think you can keep both. And in my opinion, I think, and Chad, you're going to know that this is coming from me. This is wild. There was a part of me yesterday that was like, just go sign Russell Wilson for a cheap deal. Which you know how I feel about Russell Wilson. I don't think that would have been a good idea, and I'm glad they didn't do it. But the part of me that was thinking that was, we just got to get a guy who can deal the ball, Now, do I really think Russell Wilson would have been the answer for this year? No, I don't. But that's how desperate I felt, I
tell you, I'd rather them get Jameis Winston back.
Yeah,
not so much.
I would too.
Not so much for the on field, but for what he would bring to the locker room, what he would bring to the quarterback room, because he knows the reads. He just makes some goofy plays every now and then that you're just like, oh man. You saw it when
he makes some goofy plays, but he's a leader. And he has a good attitude, and by all accounts, every locker room I've heard of him being in, the people love him. All right,
yeah.
And I'll tell you, you talk about a cool story. I used to make fun of him like crazy when he was in college. I'm just thinking, this guy is just a clown. Well, he grew up, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because
to an extent, because he's still a goofball, but
no,
he's not doing.
He's a goofball, but you can tell he's like, let me say it like this. I think he's like Cam Jordan. He's silly and he does funny things, and he's goofy. And look, Jameis Winston does, talking about the whole body being symmetrical. I mean, he says weird things, but people love him. And he is a locker room team guy. So I agree. I would love to go back and get him. But Anyway, so we talked a lot about that, and so because we spent so much time on that, did you have any other news and notes?
No, that was it.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot outside of the there's a couple of injury updates, and then the trade. There was a lot of trade stuff is what
Yeah. Yeah,
was really the main.
and Max Crosby, everywhere I looked, everyone kept saying that there was a high likelihood he was going to get dealt, and they did not deal him, which I thought was interesting because he's probably the highest value player they've got in Las Vegas.
Oh, there was the injury. I forgot to mention. It's the tight end for the Packers. That
Mhm.
Love. What's his name? Oh shoot. Tucker Love. Tucker Craft.
Yeah.
Tucker Craft. He was injured, and I don't remember. I think it may have been a season-ending injury, but I can't. Yeah, he's on IR with a knee injury. So,
Okay.
um,
Well, all right. So
that's a big hit for them.
yeah, for sure. And such a weird up and down season the Packers have had. So let's do this a little bit different. So we're gonna hit last week's scores real quick, and unless there's something very specific you want to talk about, I'm just gonna fly through these, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming games. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So to start us off, last Thursday, we had the Ravens go to the Dolphins, 28-6. Ravens, obviously Lamar was back, and the Ravens looked like everyone thought they were going to look. By the way, I will say this. I've heard some people, and this would make sense, and you and I have talked a lot about this on Alumni House, about Lane Kiffin making sense in Gainesville because of his ties. I've heard some people say that the Miami Dolphins job may be a job that Lane Kiffin's interested in too, and that might not be a job that he would say no to. I don't know that. He may be happy in college, but I thought that was interesting because I felt like that,
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, closer to the mark, I think, than some of the others. But so then obviously the Saints went to Los Angeles and lost 34-10. They've got basically one more game that I don't think they can win, which is the Bucks in Tampa. After that, I think all of their games are winnable. It's whether they win them. And to be honest, man, I just want to see the Saints get to 5 or 6 wins. Like, I am not a sandbag guy. I know you're not either. Like, I get, like, you and I were talking last year, and you and our uncle were saying, I don't want to make the playoffs if we're just going to get in and lose one game. And I get that. But what I also don't want to see is this is our worst start in, 40 years or whatever it is. I don't know what the actual number is, but it's a long time. I don't want to see a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 pick. I mean, it'd be one thing if there's a surefire quarterback in that, but there's not, So, but anyway, we'll see. So they've got one more game I don't think is winnable. The rest of them are winnable. So with 8 games left on the schedule, it'd be nice if they could maybe split that or get 3 more wins or something like that. Anyway, all right. So the Bears went to the Bengals and won 47-42. That was a Big 12 score. In that one,
This is Caleb Williams' first game-winning drive, the fourth quarter overtime. Like they had that stat. How many times they led a game. That was his first one. Joe Flacco, 40-year-old wonder, threw for almost 500 yards in this game, and the Bengals still found a way to lose with
it's funny.
Saints
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you remember when the Bengals came to New Orleans and 15 or 16, Dalton was the quarterback, and Drew Brees threw for I want to say it was almost 600 yards because he crossed 500 yards. It was a shootout and the Saints lost. So I don't know what it is with these Bengals quarterbacks, man, but they're I feel like every couple of years you see a Bengals quarterback go for well over 400. I mean, obviously, the market. I feel like you had a really good game if you're 325 or above, and if you get above 425, that's like, the great quarterbacks get one or two of those a season. So 470
Mm-hmm.
on 47 passes, which is nice, clean number. That is 10 yards average per attempt. But obviously only 31 completions. So the Vikings went to the Lions and won that game. That was a really good game. And it came down to the very end. But I don't know what the Lions were doing on defense, but they had a third down play where they it was either a second or third down play, but they needed it. I think it was a third down play, and the running back just gashed them. And in fact, the Chargers or the Vikings had two of those, and on the first one, McCarthy went the wrong way to hand it off to the running back, and had he gone the right way, there was a huge hole. So the Lions, I don't know what they were doing on that last defensive possession, but the Vikings had their number on that. But it was a good game. The Panthers don't look now, but they're 5-4, 16-13 over the Packers. You know, I'm happy for Bryce Young. You know, do you remember? I don't know, was his first season last year or 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. Halfway through the season, everybody was saying, like, oh, he's a bust and this and that. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if he's a bust. I think he's just on a terrible, terrible team. And it's not like he's lighting the world on fire, but there's steady improvement there. And I hate to say that because they're a divisional rival, but happy for Bryce Young. I mean, he seems like one of the good ones. Chargers 27-20 over the Titans. This was a little perplexing because obviously first 3 or 4 weeks we're thinking Packers and Chargers are the teams in the NFL, and the Titans are 0-4 at home, 1-8 overall, so not very good. They're Saints bad, but except at least the Saints have a home win. But look for anything I can to not be the worst team in the league. But yeah, so the Chargers squeak one out 27-20. Falcons go to New England, and this was really surprising. So I knew the Patriots were having a good year. I did not realize how good. They're 7-2. Now they barely beat the Falcons, but the Falcons freak me out this year, man, because they've looked really good in some games, and they have looked abysmal in some games. So I'm kind of not surprised to see that they took New England at Foxborough all the way to the end, but still crazy. The 49ers beat the best 2-7 team in the history of the NFL, I think, probably in the Giants. They really are. I mean, they play and look like a 500 or better team, but they're 2-7. You know, 34-24 is the final. Do
you think
New Jersey.
Mac Jones has created a bit of a quarterback controversy there?
I know, and I think it's because of the way the contracts are set up. But I do think that Mac Jones has made himself some money and maybe created value for the 49ers. But I think because of the way Purdy's contract sits right now, no, I don't ultimately think that there's a controversy. I'll tell you where I do think there's a controversy, and we'll get to it in just a minute. But the Colts went to Pittsburgh and lost 27-20, a rare loss for the Colts this year, 7-2. Daniel
I watched them. Listen, this is kind of an odd game.
Yeah, it is odd. So look at this stat line. Daniel Jones was 31 of 50. Okay, so just above 50%, right around 58, 60% for 342, which is not terrible, but one touchdown. So when you throw the ball 50 times and have 31 completions, 342 yards, and only get one tud, that's weird,
They're more of a running team too, and Taylor only had 45 yards and 14 carries. The Steelers' defense was really keeping them contained, in the run game. So that's why Daniel threw the ball so much in this one. But
yeah, well, and that hurts when you have to become one-dimensional. Then the play action is no threat. The run action is no threat. I mean, the run action could be, but the play action is basically no threat. And so when you have to do that, if you don't have Aaron Rodgers or, one of those guys, it's not going to work out well. Usually. So the Broncos beat the Texans 18-15. Now, I just said that the Giants are the best 2-7 team in the league. I think the Broncos are the worst 7-2 team in the league because it's not that I actually think they're bad. I think they're a good team, and obviously they've only lost twice in 9 tries. But they've had a lot of close games, and the Texans obviously are not what Ryans or we're not getting out of D'Amico Ryans or C.J. Stroud what we thought we would this season. But then the Jaguars just keep winning. 30-29 over the 2-6 Raiders. Jaguars are looking more and more.
Saw history in this game.
It was 68 yards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the kicker who made the 70 or 71 yarder in the preseason, went ahead and made it official and broke the actual record because obviously preseason stats don't count. But hit a 68-yard field goal. And what was the previous record? Was it 67?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he made about like a yard.
Yeah. And that may not sound like all that impressive, but I mean, when you think about like the best kickers, normally you see like their max range is like 57, 58 yards. And obviously no NFL kicker is going to be able to kick the ball 68 yards nonstop. I mean, look, Quacker, you're not this guy, but a lot of people, just have this attitude, well, your only job is to kick, line up and kick it. But, I played soccer my whole life. I was never actually a kicker on a football team because I played corner, but I did work out a couple off seasons with some kickers as like to be like a contingency or whatever. And I just have to tell you that, it's the density of the grass. All these fields are different. Everyone knows the Washington field is terrible, but all these fields are a little bit different. They're all high quality, but they're a little bit different. The dew consistency, the viscosity, how good the snap is, how good the hold is, the trajectory, the wind. It's hard. And especially once you get outside of 40 yards, it's really hard. And so I have a lot of respect for kickers because, we look at it and we're like, oh, he missed that thing badly. But what we don't know are all of the factors. You know what it's like on a smaller scale? It's like being a legitimate like Navy SEAL sniper, right? These guys who are having to account for wind and drop and gravity and distance and all like air density and stuff like that. That's what I feel like kickers are like once you get outside of about 40 yards, because not only are they having to account for all that, but they also have to bank on all of the people their blockers, the long snapper or the snapper and the placeholder all doing their job, and so 68 yards, man, that's incredible.
We almost saw it tied in the Cowboys game. That Brandon Aubrey, he hit it 68 yards, but it just went wide left.
Yeah,
but he had the distance on that one. So.
Well, and every time I think of a Cowboys game with kicking in Jerry World, I think of the first game that it was open or whatever. Well, no, when that was an away game, right? Because that was a playoff game. I think that was an away game.
Yeah.
In his first season as the starter. But no, like the first game that it was open, the punter like hit the viewboard, the
scoreboard.
But yeah. So by the way, if you're a football fan and you haven't been there, you need to go to Cowboys Stadium and AT&T Stadium, whatever it's called. I've only been there once, and I went for a college game, but it is an awesome experience.
I've done a tour. I've never watched a game there, but I've done a tour. I've been on the field.
I've heard the tour is
cool.
really cool. Yeah, but it's cool. And we were in the upper deck. Well, there's like 4 tiers. We were in like the 3rd tier of the end zone, and we could see very well, well. And so, but anyway. The Chiefs went to the Bills, and no real surprise here. It's not like the Bills have been lighting it on fire, but they win 28-21 over the Chiefs. Seahawks rolled against the Commanders. Obviously, we talked about that with Jaden Daniels, and Sam Darnold did not have to pass very much, but I'm pretty sure that he was perfect in the first half. I don't think he missed his first pass until the second half.
He was like 13 for 13. Yeah.
Yeah, and wound up 21 of 24 for 330 and 4 touchdowns. So, good game for him. Looks like the Commanders are, obviously, it's like you said, Mariota is a capable backup, but at 3-6 and several injuries, including, now the second one to Daniels, looks like they're probably on the outside looking in at this point on the playoffs. But I will maintain that the reason I was not high on the Commanders before the season is not the reason that they haven't been good. So I was still wrong, even though I didn't think they'd be great. I thought it was for a completely different set of reasons. And obviously you just hate to see injuries be the reason. So Cardinals go to Dallas in an entertaining game, frustrating game, because I had CeeDee Lamb on my fantasy team, and I literally lost. I lost my fantasy game this week, Quacker, by 0.14 points. And CeeDee Lamb had a target at the end of the game, and I can't remember if it was a bad pass or a drop. But, man, also, what I was going to say I brought up the quarterback situation. Joe Buck and Aikman were talking about this, and I think this is interesting because Brissett's one of those guys. He's like Ryan Fitzgerald, or is it Fitzgerald or Fitzpatrick?
Fitzpatrick.
Who, he's been a career backup, but he's one of those backups that, the teams that have him know if he needs to come in for 6 or 7 games, they'll have a solid quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't feel like it's dissimilar to like if Spencer Rattler was a career backup, because I feel like he would be a solid backup. I just don't think he can carry a team. But they were talking about how they feel like no matter when Kyler Murray comes back, the way Brissett played Monday, if he continues to play like that, you got to keep him in. Only 261, 21 of 31 through the air and 2 touchdowns, but he just commanded the field, And we all know, and I like Kyler Murray, but he's an athlete more than he is a general, and there's something about, being a field general that's just really valuable.
I've always liked Jacoby Brissett. He's one of those players. I don't know what it is about him, but I've always liked him. I've always liked watching him play. And he's kind of like Jameis, not as prone to make the goofy plays, but he has a way of leading those around him, and you always hear about him being a good locker room guy too. Like you never hear any kind of bad stuff about him. He's one of those players that, if he was on my team, I'd be like, awesome, we have a awesome player on our team.
Well, we talk a lot about the quarterbacks that we grew up with, whether it's Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Breeze, those guys that were in the league forever, that will never see a collection of 5 quarterbacks that good for that long again, I think. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, Geno Smith, all of those guys came out like early, middle 10s, between like 12 and 15. And have all been very consistent spot starters and very good backups. The biggest difference is obviously Jameis was a bust as a first-round player, but he's one of the few guys who was able to parlay that into being one of those guys like Brissett or Geno Smith or Bridgewater. I mean, we saw Bridgewater do an excellent job when Breeze was out a few years ago. But it's funny because just 5, 6, 8 years after that group of legendary quarterbacks, you have some of the best backups that I can remember in recent history. In those guys, Bridgewater, Geno Smith, Brissett, Winston, and I'm with you. I'd take any of them on the Saints, as a backup or a starter, or a starter right now.
Right. You're talking about Winston being a bust. I mean, part of that was his eyesight was, he had that LASIK surgery because I talked about that season, where he had like the 30 interceptions and the 30 touchdown, like 30 year, And he was like, "Yo, give me a break." He said, "My eyesight was so bad." He said, "I
Yeah.
thought what was the coach's name? Arians, Bruce Arians said, I thought he was the black guy until I had surgery." So it was it was bad.
Was Bruce? I think Bruce Arians, if he was the coach for Jameis, it was only his last year.
I think
Because I
so.
think he had a
I think
different
that
coach
was
before that. Because I
yeah.
thought Arians' first year was Brady's first year, but it might have been that might have been Arians' second year.
Yeah.
But I can't remember who was it the guy who was it Shiano? Was he Jameis's coach?
I think at first,
Okay,
and then it went to
and he was a goofball in the pros. So
yeah, and then it went to Raheem Morris, I think, or he
that's
may
right.
have been
Yeah, one of those guys.
yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna real quickly hit this upcoming week's game. So the Jets are gonna start us off going to Foxborough to play the Patriots on Thursday. Sunday in the overseas game. This one's in Spain. The Commanders are being hosted, air quotes, by the Dolphins. That'll
Are
be
you on
cool.
the right week? Are you on week 10?
Oh, sorry, that's next week. Good catch. I must have. I think I clicked it and then clicked it again without realizing it. All right, so let me start over. So the Raiders are going to the Broncos on Thursday. Should not be much drama in this game. Our boys are playing Carolina in Carolina. I wish I'd known that. I'm only an hour and a half from Charlotte, and I can get tickets as low as $65.
Yeah.
Although with my job, it would be hard to make a 1 o'clock kick. But anyway, so then there is an overseas game, but this one's in Germany. This is Berlin. The Colts are hosting the Falcons, and that'll be pretty sweet to see. And that's at Olympic Stadium Berlin, which is one of their flagship national stadiums for soccer. In the traditional early window, the Giants are going to Chicago. I kind of feel like the Giants might win this game just because I feel like the Bears are trending up, but I love everything happening in New York, and I'm just not a big fan of the new Giants new Bears head coach, but that's just me. The Bills are going to the Dolphins. Should not be a lot of drama there. It's Buffalo's only an 8.5 point favorite, which in the NFL is not small, but you would think that as much of a dumpster fire as the Dolphins have been, it would be bigger. The Ravens are going to the Vikings. That's a 3-5 versus a 4-4 team. Should be a good game. Baltimore is actually favored by 4.5 on the road in this game, and that's probably because Lamar's back. The Browns are going to the Jets. That's a battle of a 2-6 and a 1-7 team. Cleveland's a 2.5 point favorite. Yeah, we'll see. And then the last couple of early window games, the Pats are going to the Bucks. That'll be a good game. That's a battle of two lost
I would
teams.
say I'm looking forward to this one here.
Yeah, maybe one of the best games of the week. Certainly the best game in the early window. Then the Jags are headed to Houston to play the Texans. This will be good. I think I look for the Jags to win, but the Texans have been trending upward a little bit. So
and the Jags are only 1.5 point favorite in this one, which is surprising.
Well, I don't think it's that surprising because this is this a divisional game? I always forget if the Jags are East or South. Okay, so it's a divisional game, and I was pretty sure, but I didn't want to say that. And 3-5 versus 5-3, it's in Houston. So, Houston's going to get 2.5 for that anyway. So you're looking at probably more like a 3.5, 4 point spread if it were neutral. And being divisional, we know how the divisional games will go unless you're the Saints playing the Bucks. So yeah, I mean, I get that it's not a huge spread, but I think I understand why. Over under, however, on this is 37.5.
Really low, yeah.
And I don't know if our cousin still lives in Houston or not, but if she does, she and her husband should go to this game because you can get in for $37.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
Okay, there we go. But we can't tell her that because she's a huge sports fan, so she'd probably try and find a way to make that happen. All right. So then in the afternoon window, the Cardinals are going to the Seahawks. The Rams, that's the only 4:05 game. Then 4:25, the Rams at the Niners, be a great game. That's also a divisional game. Lions going to the Commanders. Lions have been a little inconsistent this year. Look for them to win this game. They're 8.5-point favorites. They should win by, touchdown or so, but we'll see. And then to cap off the night, and this I'm excited about. I'm excited about it because the Chargers are good, and there's something about watching the Steelers on Sunday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I just love it. It is like prime football season stuff. 2.5-point favorite. The Chargers are at home at SoFi. So excited about that game. That game and the Bucs game are probably the games I'm most excited about. Although because the Bucs are involved in the Bucs game, I'm less excited about that one. So I think it'll be a good game, but I'm much more looking forward to the Steelers and Chargers. And then to cap off the week, on Monday, the 10th of November, the day before Veterans Day, the Eagles are headed to the Packers in what also should be a good game. Both of these teams have been kind of weird. So do we get one of them looks awesome and one looks terrible? Is it a great game? Is it a terrible game? I don't know. We'll see. But the Packers are favored as the home team by 2.5, which, as we talk about every week, means that it's basically a push. All right. So, final
the
thoughts?
Eagles. I was just thinking with the Eagles being so active in the trade, the trade deadline. They got 3 new players. You got to wonder how they're going to fit in this week. Coming into this game here. You kind of wonder if maybe that'll have a little bit of an effect on how well the Eagles play overall with having 3 new players like that. They're going to try to work him in during the week, I know, and it'll be crash course, but this is all new teammates for them and stuff. So, that'll be interesting to see how that affects the Eagles this week.
Yeah. For sure. Well, it's going to be, I think that's a good point. It's going to be interesting. All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. We're right at an hour on this episode. Quacker, where can people find the show?
You can find us here on YouTube and on Twitch. I guess we're still under the Alumni House banner on that, just with the Southbound. You can find us on social media at Alumni House Podcast, at Facebook, Twitter, it's Alumni House Pod, and that's about it.
Yep, and you can find our personal X handles right below our faces. Don't forget, tomorrow night we will be doing the weekend preview for college football on Alumni House, so would love for you to join us for that. With that being said, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time.